You know, it's a pretty staggering reality. But have you ever wondered why over 20,000 businesses in Australia end up facing liquidation in a single year? And what's even crazier is that 76% of those are small to medium enterprises. We're talking about everyday people whose entrepreneurial dreams basically hit a brick wall during that critical make or break establishment phase. It's a sobering statistic, right? But what it really tells us is that having a ton of passion and a great idea simply isn't enough to survive. You need a rock-solid, meticulously crafted blueprint.
So welcome to this explainer. Think of building a business kind of like constructing a massive skyscraper. I mean, if you just start pouring concrete and stacking steel without a foundational blueprint, a strong breeze is going to topple the whole thing over. Today, we're going to act as your chief architects. We'll be breaking down the exact processes of establishing and planning a small to medium enterprise, often called an SME, so your business can actually withstand the intense pressures of the modern market.
Here is our blueprint for today. We'll cover the role of SMEs, establishing your business, the business planning process, navigating rules and operations, and we'll wrap up with critical issues for success. Our entire discussion today is firmly grounded in the HSC Business Studies syllabus, specifically topic 9.3, which is all about business planning. Think of this as our architectural code. It dictates that to truly grasp business success, we have to evaluate the deep processes of establishing and planning an SME. We need to look at how internal and external influences shape a business, how key functions are totally interdependent, and how smart entrepreneurs identify and actually sustain a real competitive advantage.
All right, let's dive into Section 1, the role of SMEs. So you really can't plan a business without knowing exactly which sector you're building in. At the absolute base, we have the primary sector. That's all about acquiring raw materials, like agriculture or mining. Then comes secondary, where we take those raw materials, add labor and capital, and manufacture finished products. Moving up the ladder, we have the tertiary sector, which is entirely focused on providing services, things like healthcare or retail. And finally, the quaternary sector, which handles information services. Nailing down your sector is crucial because it dictates literally everything, from your supply chain lead times all the way to your target market.
Now, who's actually doing all this building? Well, a small to medium enterprise, or SME, is generally categorized as a business with under 20 employees. And the driving force behind it? The entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is someone who uses their initiative to take a calculated risk to start something new. And honestly, that word calculated is the entire difference between a wildly successful launch and just becoming another part of that 20,000 failure statistic we talked about earlier.
Moving right along to Section 2, establishing your business.
When you're finally ready to take the leap, the U.S. Small Business Administration outlines two major pathways you can take. On one hand, you can buy an existing business. This gives you immense control, a proven operational blueprint, and an existing customer base from day one. But the catch is you're largely on your own without much external guidance. On the other hand, you could go the franchising route. This offers an amazing safety net of guidance, training, and instant brand recognition. But the trade-off? You have to follow incredibly strict rules, meaning a major loss of ultimate control over how you run your day-to-day operations.
To really grasp the sheer power and structure of the franchise model, just look at McDonald's. They don't just hand you a recipe for burgers. They literally control the ground you stand on. They buy or lease the land and the building, and then the franchisee signs a 20-year agreement to pay rent directly back to McDonald's. It's an absolutely genius real estate strategy that creates a highly controlled, super safe environment for the operators, but obviously it requires some serious capital and long-term commitment from the franchisee.
Now for Section 3, the business planning process.
Before you spend a single cent on inventory, you absolutely have to validate your idea using a step-by-step situational analysis and market research process. Step 1, is there actual real-world demand for your product? Step 2, what's the market size? Are there even enough people out there to sustain you? Step 3, check those economic indicators. What is the income level of your target demographic? Basically, can they afford you? And Step 4, location. Where do your customers live, and can your business physically or digitally reach them? Doing this upfront research is what significantly minimizes that calculated risk.
Once you actually know your market inside and out, you apply the 4 Ps of the marketing mix. This involves your product, we're talking its quality, packaging, and branding. Your price, how you balance your cost of goods sold with your desired profit margin. Your promotion, how you're going to communicate through advertising and build real customer loyalty. And finally, place.
Your distribution channel. Is your product going to be intensively distributed everywhere, selectively placed, or maybe exclusively sold in high-end boutiques? Every single one of these P's must align perfectly with the target market we just researched.
If we zoom in and isolate just one of those P's, price, we see some radically different strategies out there. Take penetration pricing, for example. This is where a business deliberately sets its prices lower than competitors to rapidly capture market share. You might even take a loss right out of the gate just to get customers in the door. Now contrast that with price skimming. That's where prices are set exceptionally high at launch, usually to quickly recover heavy research and development costs. Think of an incredibly hyped, brand new piece of tech. These are two completely different blueprints for making money.
Let's move on to Section 4, Navigating Rules and Operations.
So understanding your legal and financial obligations is absolutely crucial. Take a very real textbook example. A 27.5% flat tax rate applied to small businesses. When you're sitting down projecting your cash flow and calculating your break-even point, you have to account for this massive slice of the pie. If you aren't forecasting for federal and state taxes, health regulations, and local charges, well, your financial plan is completely structurally unsound from day one.
Now, let's talk about scale for a second. $24 billion. That is a staggering number, and it represents Yum Brand's digital sales in a single year across their 55,000 global restaurants, places like KFC and Taco Bell. So why mention a corporate giant in an explainer about small businesses? It's to juxtapose your local SME experience with global behemoths. It proves that whether you are a little corner store or Yum Brands, the strategic role of marketing, identifying market trends, and relentlessly pursuing digital efficiency, those are universal principles for survival and long-term growth.
And finally, Section 5, Critical Issues for Success.
So what actually separates the businesses that thrive from the ones that completely collapse? The vital survival skills are actually pretty clear. The importance of the business plan itself cannot be overstated. It has to be your living, breathing blueprint. You must constantly conduct trend analysis just to stay relevant. You have to actively identify and sustain a competitive advantage so your customers keep choosing you over the guy next door. And honestly, perhaps most importantly, avoiding the overextension of finance. Buying assets you don't really need with money you don't actually have is literally the fastest track to liquidation. Combine all of this with using technology effectively and shifting economic conditions, and you've built a truly fortified enterprise. Which brings us to our final thought. We've covered the foundations, the planning process, the marketing mix, and the critical issues for survival. Now, I really want to challenge you. If you were to draw up the blueprint and establish a brand new business today, based on everything we've just looked at, what would be your competitive advantage? What is the one thing that would make your skyscraper stand taller than the rest? Take these tools, do your research, and start drafting your plan. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I absolutely can't wait to see what you build.